Tower 65342 on Mount Vernon, visual runway 1.
But look at all of these aircraft that are being sequenced in to land at Reagan National. They're all most likely flying the visual approach to runway 01, but runway 33 is also an option for them, and that's going to be the runway that flight 5342 was trying to land on.
Pushing 5342, Washington Tower 1 star 320 17, gust 25, can you take runway 33?
Yeah, we can do 33 for Blue 5342.
Pushing 5342, that's a Wilson Bridge, change to turn for runway 33, clear to land.
Change to runway 33 for land with 5342.
Here's the flight aware data for the CRJ. It looks like the CRJ was cleared for the ILS straight in approach to runway 1, not the visual, and then did the sidestep to runway 33. At the request of ATC, the RJ was asked to come around and land on runway 33, the shorter runway at just 5,200 feet. This is a very demanding approach in very busy airspace. Not only do you got to stay within the tight constraints of the airspace, but you also, the runways are short, so you got to get it right on the end of the runway, requiring all of your attention.
And when they're in a left-hand turn like this, they're most likely not going to see the helicopter to the right and below them, especially on a dark night with a dark river background.
The tower controller can listen to both the helicopter and the RJ. However, the helicopter is on a separate frequency from the RJ, so the RJ cannot hear the helicopter, and I don't believe the helicopter can hear the RJ. So the airline pilot is missing half of the conversation, thus reducing his situational awareness slightly. But if you can see from here, if he's going to circle around to runway 33, that's going to put him directly in conflict with PAT 25, where the controller is going to rely upon the altitude difference. Now, very late into this transition, the tower controller here at the airport asks the helicopter, do you have the RJ jet in sight? To which the helicopter responds, yes, we have the RJ in sight, request visual separation.
My gut tells me that the controller sensed that something was wrong when he saw the Blackhawk begin to maneuver to potentially go in front of the CRJ, and that's probably why this happened.
S25, get the CRJ in sight. S25, pass behind the CRJ.
The controller asked the Blackhawk pilot if he had the CRJ in sight, and even though we don't hear his response, it's possible that he said yes because the controller immediately replied, telling him to pass behind the CRJ.
Pass 25, get the CRJ in sight. Pass 25, pass behind the CRJ.
This club has a aircraft in sight, press separation.
Good separation.
That hands off the responsibility of the separation of these two aircraft to that of the helicopter pilot.
The Blackhawk pilots probably had night vision goggles, and perhaps that's why they were able to initially acquire the CRJ visually when they were so far away. But the problem is once the CRJ made that turn to fly over the land, it was going to be very easy to lose sight of them because of all of the lights from the city, especially because there's not going to be a lot of relative motion between the two aircraft when they're flying towards each other.
The problem is, and this has been reported by other helicopter Blackhawk pilots that have flown this exact route and have seen this exact scenario. The problem is going beak to beak at night, the lights of the RJ tend to blend in with the city lights behind you, even though the RJ is a little bit above the helicopter. Another problem when you're going head to head with each other is if there's no lateral movement in the windscreen, that light is very hard to detect. And this background lighting can make it difficult to see these objects at night. And the bright landing lights of the CRJ, you're not going to see if you're approaching them from a beam. But this second aircraft behind the RJ may have been the aircraft that the helicopter mistakenly picked up on. Or he could have been picking up one of the aircraft that were taking off. It's more likely than not that the crew of the helicopters picked up on the wrong target to see and avoid.
Crash. This is Alert 3. Crash. This is Alert 3.
The FAA, which is overseen by Secretary Pete Buttigieg, A real winner. That guy's a real winner. Do you know how badly everything's run since he's run this Department of Transportation? He's a disaster. He was a disaster as a mayor. He ran his city into the ground, and he's a disaster now. He's just got a good line of bullshit.
I think maybe he gets jealous when a disaster gets more coverage than him.
We do not know what led to this crash, but we have some very strong opinions and ideas, and I think we'll probably state those opinions now. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. This was a job that had to be superior intelligence, and we didn't really have that, and we had it. And then when I left office and Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before. The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine?
Mr. President, you have today blamed the diversity elements, but then told us that you weren't sure that the controllers made any mistake. We then said perhaps the helicopter pilots were the ones who made the mistake. How you can come to the conclusion right now that diversity had something to do with this crash?
Because I have common sense, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't.
But Trump, he hears the word Black Hawk and he's like, oh, if that hawk had been white. A terrible thing happened. All he had to do is go out there and say, this is a tragedy, offer some comfort to the families, to the military families, promise to get to the bottom of it, but he can't do that.
Do you have a plan to go visit the site or meet with any of the
I
first
have a plan
responders?
to visit, not the site, because you tell me what's the site, the water?
Or to meet with the first responders down there?
I don't have a plan to do that.
We are not safe under this administration.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there an acting FAA director?
And he just walks away.
We're a declining nation right now. We're a nation in decline.